fighting around and within Benghazi itself. As President Obama also said, we have every reason to fear that, left unchecked, Gaddafi will commit unspeakable atrocities. It is against that backdrop that nations from across the region and the world met today here in Paris to discuss the ways we can, working together, implement Resolution 1973. We all recognize that further delay will only put more civilians at risk. So let me be very clear about the position of the United States. We will support an international coalition as it takes all necessary measures to enforce the terms of Resolution 1973. As you may know, French planes are already in the skies above Benghazi. Now, America has unique capabilities, and we will bring them to bear to help our European and Canadian allies and Arab partners stop further violence against civilians, including through the effective implementation of a no-fly zone. As President Obama said, the United States will not deploy ground troops, but there should be no mistaking our commitment to this effort. Today I was able to discuss the next steps with the full group and also conduct smaller, focused conversations with many of my colleagues. I met first with President Sarkozy and Prime Minister Cameron. Both France and the United Kingdom, along with other key partners, have stepped forward to play a leading role in enforcing 1973. We reviewed the latest reports from the ground and discussed how we can work together most effectively in the hours and days ahead, and how we would work very cooperatively with our other partners, including Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Germany, Greece, Italy, Lithuania, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Spain, Turkey, as well as others that are not in that long list. I also had the opportunity to engage today with my Arab counterparts, including Foreign Minister Zabari of Iraq, representing the presidency of the Arab Summit, Secretary General Amr Moussa of the Arab League, Prime Minister Hamad bin Jassim of Qatar, Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed of the UAE, Foreign Minister Fassi Fari of Morocco, and Foreign Minister Judah of Jordan. We have said from the start that Arab leadership and participation in this effort is crucial. And the Arab League showed that with its pivotal statements on Libya, what really that meant. It changed the diplomatic landscape. They have sent another strong message by being here today, and we look to them for continued leadership as well as active participation and partnership going forward. With Sheikh Abdullah and Prime Minister Hamad bin Jassim, I reiterated our strong and enduring partnership. The United States has an abiding commitment to Gulf security, and a top priority is working together with our partners on our shared concerns about Iranian behavior in the region. We share the view that Iran's activities in the Gulf, including its efforts to advance its agenda in neighboring countries, undermines peace and stability. Our Gulf partners are critical to the international community's efforts on Libya, and we thank them for their leadership. We also had a constructive discussion on Bahrain. We have a decades-long friendship with Bahrain that we expect to continue long into the future. Our goal is a credible political process that can address the legitimate aspirations of all the people of Bahrain, starting with the Crown Prince's dialogue, which all parties should join. Of course, that process should unfold in a peaceful, positive atmosphere that protects the freedom of peaceful assembly, while ensuring that students can go to school, businesses can operate, and people can undertake their normal daily activities. My GCC counterparts said they share the same goals in Bahrain. Now, Bahrain obviously has the sovereign right to invite GCC forces into its territory under its defense and security agreements. The GCC has also announced a major aid package for economic and social development in Bahrain. We have made clear that security alone cannot resolve the challenges facing Bahrain. As I said earlier this week, violence is not and cannot be the answer. A political process is. We have raised our concerns about the current measures directly with Bahraini officials and will continue to do so. With all of these partners, we have discussed the urgent humanitarian needs arising from the crisis in Libya. I thanked the Arab leaders for their generous contributions to aid refugees fleeing Gaddafi's violence, and we agreed that this will be a critical concern in the days ahead. Egypt and Tunisia, in particular, will need all of our support. The United States has made significant pledges of assistance, and we look to all our allies and partners to join us in this work. Now, this is a fluid and fast-moving situation, which may be the understatement of the time. And I know that there are lots of questions that people have about what next and what will we be doing. So let me just underscore the key point. This is a broad international effort. The world will not sit idly by while more innocent civilians are killed. The United States will support our allies and partners as they move to enforce Resolution 1973. We are standing with the people of Libya, and we will not waver in our efforts to protect them. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, will U.S. military assets be engaged in actually flying these live-fire sorties? Your locution, twice you said the U.S. will support our allies. And I'm just wondering, how active will U.S. military involvement be?
Well, I think that I'll stand by what I said. We will support the enforcement of 1973. We have unique capabilities to bring to the international efforts, and we intend to do so.
Madam Secretary, you mentioned twice in here again that it's important crucial for Arab leadership and participation. Do we know exactly what that leadership and participation is now specifically, and which countries are going to be giving it?
Well, Matt, I think the fact that we had the representation around the table that we did today, and the very strong statements that were made by Arab representatives is extraordinarily important. But I will leave it to them to announce their contributions. I think that's the appropriate way for any further information to be made available.
I'm sorry, but you do expect something more than them just being at the table today, that they have promised?
Yes, we do expect more.
Secretary Clinton, you have, actually the reports now coming in from Benghazi are that it is quiet and it appears that the tanks have stopped. I know it's moving quickly, so I won't even ask you to go there. But in general, President Sarkozy said that the doors of diplomacy will open when the aggression stops. Now, can you explain, number one, what that means? Is that the view of the entire coalition? Could it actually engage with Muammar Gaddafi after what has happened?
Well, Jill, I will let President Sarkozy explain his own statement, but our assessment is that the aggressive actions by Gaddafi forces continue in many places in the country. We saw it over the last 24 hours, and we have seen no real effort on the part of the Gaddafi forces to abide by a ceasefire despite the rhetoric. Several of the speakers around the table said forcefully that they've heard these words, they've heard them publicly, they were conveyed privately, and they are not true. So I think our assessment is that it's time for the international community to take action to back up Resolution 1973.
In terms of the goal of this operation, is it to protect civilians, or is it to remove President Gaddafi from power?
It is to protect civilians, and it is to provide access for humanitarian assistance. If you read the very comprehensive resolution that the Security Council passed, it is focused on protecting civilians from their own government. Yes?
Do you have any indication, I know you said, has Bahrain or the UAE given you any indication that they would fly fighter jets over Libya at all?
Again, I'm going to let individual countries make their own announcements.
Yes. The President's comments yesterday seemed to stop short of repeating his and your calls for Gaddafi to step down. I'm wondering if you could go back to that question. Is there any way that the U.S. could see the Libya situation resolving itself with Gaddafi somehow still in play? And what does this action with the UN resolution mean for Gaddafi's survival in the short or long term?
You know, those are all questions that, standing here, are difficult to answer. And certainly the conditions that will unfold as we begin to enforce this resolution will make a new environment in which people are going to act, including those around Colonel Gaddafi. So I think we should take stock of where we are and how we got here, and how many times the international community called on Gaddafi to end the violence against his own people and to take demonstrable steps to end the aggression and pull back. And time again, starting with the first resolution, 1970, through the succeeding time period, there was no evidence that he intended to do so, despite various claims that were made. And if the international community is to have credibility in this show of unity that 1973 represents, then action must take place. And if you look at all the possible permutations of what could or could not happen once the international community begins to enforce the resolution, there are many different outcomes, and I'm not going to speculate on what will occur. Yeah.
Secretary, I know you said you didn't want to talk about what steps might come next, but what did the group of leaders today actually agree to do?
They agreed to take all necessary measures, including military action, to enforce 1973.
But in terms of the details of that?
Well, those are operational details, Steve. I mean, I think that it's understandable that we're not going to lay out every asset that's been pledged and every action that's been endorsed. But I think the coming together under President Sarkozy's leadership today to reiterate that the words agreed to in the Security Council were more than just rhetorical commitments, but are being translated into very specific actions. Some countries are more public with their specific pledges to what they are willing to do, and others are looking at how they can best contribute. But the conclusion of this meeting was, for me, very positive because it was an unmistakable commitment to enforcing the 1973 provisions. Yes?
What do today's actions do to the timeline for Gaddafi to act? How does it accelerate that?
Well, I think, as I said, French planes were in the air as we were meeting, and there will be other actions to follow, but there is no doubt that we're going to begin to enforce the resolution.
Madam Secretary, as you yourself just said, for much of the 40 years Colonel Gaddafi's run that country has been branded an international outlaw. What is the compelling interest to the average American today to take this action?
I think there are three very important interests. Number one, with all of the activities that Colonel Gaddafi engaged in the past, we in the United States had a very clear interest in trying to contain him and prevent him from taking both direct and indirect actions against us and our people, as well as many others. Following his decision to give up nuclear weapons in 2005, when it was finally resolved, it appeared that there might be a new opportunity from him to join the international community. But unfortunately, that has not borne to be true. And we now have the very brutal crackdown that he is conducting, which reminds us all why he was considered an outlaw in the past. And it's unfortunate, but it is a reality that we have to take into account. Secondly, this has been a time of great ferment in the region, and you have two countries bordering Libya, Egypt and Tunisia, that are committed to a democratic transformation, and they have long borders with Libya, and they are facing humanitarian crises on those borders, and there is a lot of concern about the people who are still inside Libya, both Libyans and third-party nationals, that no one can get to and that are basically unaccounted for, and a very unfortunate surmise that Gaddafi does not approve of democracy and the actions being taken by his neighbors, which poses a lot of questions about what he might do in the future. But thirdly, the Arab League and the Gulf Cooperation Council statements calling for actions by the United Nations were of historic importance. There was a recognition by the Arab countries that Gaddafi had to be suspended from the Arab League, but even beyond that, that a no-fly zone and related actions had to be taken. I think it would be quite unfortunate if the international community were to have ignored those requests. And it is in America's interests, along with our European and Canadian allies, to forge strategic partnerships with Arab nations as we move forward into this new era of change in the Arab world. So there are very specific reasons, there are regional concerns, and then there are, in my view, very strong strategic rationales as to why the United States will support. We did not lead this. We did not engage in unilateral actions in any way, but we strongly support the international community taking action against governments and leaders who behave as Gaddafi is unfortunately doing so now. And we think an international order that can bring about this kind of unity is very much in America's interests.
Secretary Clinton, could I ask one follow-up? You just said, as conditions are unfolding, that will create a new environment in which people will act, including those around Colonel Gaddafi. Do we read that to say you are, in essence, giving up on influencing Colonel Gaddafi, that you are now aiming a lot of this at the people who are around him who support him?
I think we're aiming the messages at all the decision makers inside Libya. As you know, there have been quite a number of defections. The opposition is largely led by those who defected from the Gaddafi regime or who formerly served it. And it is certainly to be wished for that there will be even more such defections, that people will put the future of Libya and the interests of the Libyan people above their service to Colonel Gaddafi.
May I ask a no-fly zone question, which is, you met with Mr. Jibril here in Paris not that long ago.
Right, not that long ago.
Are you any closer to making a decision on whether to follow the French lead in recognizing the Benghazi-based opposition?
We are not ready to make a decision. We have increased our outreach and cooperation with members and leaders of the opposition. We are in almost hourly contact with someone, but we think that the most important step for us to take now is to assist in every way that is unique to American capabilities with the enforcement of 1973, which is, after all, the principal demand of the opposition. And that's what we're trying to meet.
Madam Secretary, who is that person, the individual that you mentioned? You said we're in almost hourly contact with an individual.
With a lot of people.
So not one leader.
No, a lot of people, yeah.
On the Hill, Senator Lugar and others have repeatedly suggested that they thought the president should go to Congress to have a debate over a declaration of war in this instance before involving the United States in action with Libya. My question to you is, what do you think of those comments? Do you think that there's merit to that, and would you describe what's going on now as a war?
No, I think the president made that clear in a meeting with congressional leaders that he held in outlining all of the reasons why the United States was prepared to act in support of the international efforts on behalf of 1973. And of course, we would always welcome congressional support, but the president's very clear that the United States is acting in a way that is within the existing authorities available to him.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you all. Have a great night in Paris, those of you who get to stay. Oh, so jealous!
A press conference by U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton from Paris. Of course, this is after the summit that was had earlier today, held with the United States and France and the UK, the main parties involved in this. And of course, she's basically said that they have all come together and in order to save human lives, that they have made this decision to not only implement the no-fly zone in Libya, but to use whatever is deemed necessary. And she said the United States has a special capacity. She mentioned that a couple of times, not elaborating exactly on what that capacity is, exactly what they were planning to do. And she said that the main reason for them getting involved was because of the loss of life, to prevent the life from being lost. So we're going to switch over actually to London, and we're going to talk to Dr. Saeed Shah in London. Thank you so much for joining us. Were you able to hear that press conference from Hillary Clinton?
Yes, I did.
And your thoughts on it?
My thoughts, I think, first of all, it's clear that she said, under the leadership of Sarkozy, so America trying to be not in the forefront like what happened in Iraq, and I think that's a good step from public diplomacy to put Europe on the forefront for the action against Libya. And she mentioned also the French planes over the skies in Benghazi. And I think it's a good step. Even I think it's too late, because it's supposed to be taken, I think, a few days ago, because the atrocities happened, many people were killed. But at least it's a step taken by Security Council, supported by the Arab League and the representative for the Arab League and Arab countries there in the French summit. So I think, but the other thing is they don't or she was not in details about taking off Muammar Gaddafi out of the power. So they might think about renegotiating with him, because I think his spokesperson today mentioned they will be disappointing if they strike, Libya, and they might use Al-Qaeda and supporting Al-Qaeda. So it might be frightening them for a little bit. So they think again about if there's someone else who can like replace al-Qaddafi, especially the transitional council, I think after the talks between America and some representative, even Hillary Clinton with the transition council and other parts, so I think they might not trust this council to take over, so they don't close the doors before al-Qaddafi, but if they put like him under pressure, like what happened in 2005 after he dismantled his nuclear program ambitions, after he put him under pressure, so it might change his mind again, and they might accept that. So, but we'll see. You know, the events will unfold, and what she said, like the condition will be clear day after day. So the decision about a negotiation with al-Qaddafi and keeping him or not, I think the next days will tell.
Okay, let me turn to Beirut and welcome former Lebanese cabinet minister Mr. Issam Nauman for joining us. Thanks for being with us. What's your take on Hillary Clinton's press conference?
Well, it's quite clear now that the Paris meeting has decided on certain measures, it seems military measures, in order to implement Resolution 1973. As we have been told, French airplanes are surveying the Libyan skies in order to locate the heavy weapons of Gaddafi that are surrounding Benghazi and Misrata and other cities. And they are pounding these two cities for a long time. And I think the next step will be to take them off. Mrs. Clinton said that one of the measures will be to secure access to humanitarian assistance. Well, if the Gaddafi heavy weapons are still surrounding Benghazi and Misrata, then no humanitarian assistance will reach them. So I think that sooner or later the UN military aircraft will be pounding the Gaddafi heavy weapons surrounding these two cities at least.
Okay. Do you see the situation now that they're getting involved, if they really get involved, do you see it being short-term, or do you think that it could be something totally drawn out? I'll stay with you in Beirut. I'm just about out of time.
Well, it all depends on Gaddafi. If he clings to his present positions surrounding Benghazi and Misrata and other cities, then I think it will be a long war, and the UN forces and this UN alliance will find itself obliged to wage war on him to try to liberate these cities from his heavy weaponry.
Okay. I'm so sorry, but we are out of time, but I'd like to thank journalist and political analyst from London, Dr. Saeed Shahadha, and also from Beirut, Mr. Issam Nauman, former minister. And as always, viewers, thank you so much. Tune to Press TV. Don't go away. We'll be up with all the news from the region and the rest of the world in just about 3.5 minutes.